Salwe, hello, Salwe, and welcome to my new YouTube Latin channel. This channel runs alongside and complements another Latin channel that I have called Evan 1965, and it also complements a audio-only course that I have called the Latinum podcast. You can simply Google for Latin podcast and it'll come up first on the list. Unlike my other YouTube channel, this is going to be mostly conducted in English. It'll be about language learning as much as about learning Latin. Latin's a language that for English speakers can be quite difficult to get to grips with. In terms of difficulty, it's a complex language. Languages can be graded, and Latin's up there at level 4. There are a few languages at level 5, so it's not easy. The main reason why English speakers have trouble with Latin is not the vocabulary, but the grammar. English is a linear language. It's like an express train running through, and the meaning is dependent upon the place of words in the sentence. So John killed the boy is not the same thing as the boy killed John. Quite different, simply by moving the order of the words in the sentence. Latin does use word order to some degree, to show emphasis, to show the importance of things. But the primary meaning of the words is not contained in their order in the sentence. It's contained within the words themselves. And because of this, word order is extremely flexible. This causes problems for English speakers, particularly when Latin's being used poetically, when the Romans took this ability of Latin to be reconstituted in different arrangements, to create patterns in poetry that are quite hard for us to get our heads around. Recent MRI studies have been done, and what the outcome is essentially is that when an English person is processing a language like Latin that's highly inflected, a totally different part of the brain is being used than is used to process English. And this part of the brain is not very well developed in English speakers. So essentially, one reason why Latin is so hard is that we are constructing neural networks. We're constructing basically a nerve internet in our brains that doesn't exist, or it only exists in a very basic form. And this process takes years. It can take 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 years, maybe even more. On the way, you can build up a massive vocabulary, but you can't expect to suddenly have skill in the language in the first stages of learning it. Progress will seem slow, and you won't feel like you're making an enormous amount of headway. What's important is to have an enormous amount of throughput of the language. That means listening to it as much as possible, reading as much as possible, and also starting to study the grammar. But simply knowing the grammar rules is not going to be enough. Your brain has to process the language at real-time speed. So knowing about the rules, while that's important to speed things up a bit, far more important is huge amounts of exposure to the language and to reading huge amounts of a language. This course is going to use a variety of materials. Some of it's going to be based around George Adler, who wrote a Latin version of a textbook that was extremely popular in the mid-1800s by a linguist called Ollendorff, who wrote a series of textbooks for learning languages that became very, very popular, and were used very widely. In fact, we even have a word in the English dictionary, Ollendorfian, relating to this method, which is highly repetitive, but repetition when learning language is very good. And it builds up very, very slowly and incrementally. So Adler wrote a Latin textbook for this course, which is an oral course aimed at conversational proficiency. As such, it's quite useful because it only takes us slowly through the basics, and then eventually you build up your skills and can start to, after 2 or 3 years, get into more advanced material. I'm also going to be talking about linguists such as Krashen and his theories, and various ideas about how to go about learning a language that you can adopt and adapt depending on the way you feel comfortable. This is primarily going to be, of course, an audio course. You're going to be listening to me. You will be able to read. I'll tell you what books we're using, so you can refer back to the texts. Google Books, and that's another topic in itself, has opened up the world for us as students of Latin, and that's another conversation. Anyway, that's the first introductory episode, and so far we've learned one thing: salve, hello. That's to one person. Salvete, hello to lots of people. So salve, salvete, and vale, goodbye, to one person. Valete, goodbye, to many people. So salve and vale.